let's get started. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is David Huckvale. I'm the Director of Admission and Post-Secondary Counseling here at Country Day, and I've been here for 13 lucky years. My position is actually a pretty interesting and unique one. I don't know if anyone else holds those two titles in an independent school in Canada, and I'm so lucky to have both. I get to meet our prospective families and help welcome them to our school and tell them some of the amazing stories about Country Day. And then I get to help students as they're transitioning out of CDS, including Jose and Carly, who are two of our panelists here tonight, and they'll tell you all about themselves. But boy, I've got the best job in the school. I'm also the baseball coach, and we just had a game. I got sun. I got a little bit of sun today because it was lovely and bright. And so that's me. If you're watching this, you've probably already done a little bit of homework about us. And so I'm not going to go into great detail, but a little introduction is probably appropriate here. First and foremost, CDS is turning 50 this year. So as a 53-year-old, I can say 50 is an amazing age. I feel like we've really just reached that perfect moment, that time when we've arrived and we have so many, some experience, but we're still young and looking for what's next here in our school. We have a beautiful 100-acre property. I'm here on campus here tonight looking at the window at our beautiful courtyard, and we use that space to our advantage in so many ways. We're here in King Township, specifically at King and Dufferin, if you're Google mapping us. We have about 790 students from JK all the way to grade 12 in 3 divisions in the school. We are a secular, all genders welcome school. We proudly teach the Ontario curriculum. We augment with advanced placement in some really wise places. You're going to see the words education with balance on our website. And it's a tagline, but it's also something that really guides our actions, our decisions, how we approach a day, a month, a week, a year here at Country Day. Balance is academics, top-notch academics, athletics, the arts, an amazing outdoor education program. I could add a few more elements to balance, but I know the panelists are going to do that with some of their answers as well. So enough for me. I have this great panel, and I'm gonna throw it to them. I'm gonna in turn get them to briefly introduce themselves, and then we're gonna jump right into the question and answer. So I think we've all done this in the age of video conferencing. We kind of go clockwise on our screen, and so that makes Jose the first person to introduce himself. So Jose, you're up.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, thank you for the beautiful toss-up. So my name is Jose Torrealba. I'm part of the CDS class of 2017. I'm currently still in university. I'm in my 5th year pursuing a double bachelor's degree at Western University and their prospective Ivy Business School. So I'm studying both computer science and business. I'm actually currently in my last semester on exchange at the Essex Business School. So I'm actually taking this call right now from Paris, France. So that's definitely really exciting. And I also have the good fortune of sort of having secured employment post graduation at Goldman Sachs in New York, where I'll be joining them as a software engineer.
That's amazing.
Great. So I'm gonna be selfish for Jose, because most of that I knew, but it's always great to hear that our students are off having that next phase of life in good order. Carly, jump in.
Yeah, so I'm Carly. I joined CDS in 2014 in grade 7, so didn't experience the junior school, but quite a bit of the middle school and high school. I graduated in 2020, so the first COVID grad. And I'm currently in my 2nd year at the UBC Sauder School of Business, planning to specialize in organizational behavior and human resources. And I've also gotten into the choir here at the UBC. So that's something that CDS planted a seed in me of loving choir. So yeah, that's me.
Carly, you'll be pleased to hear it. It's coffee house tonight at CDS, the first time in person in forever. So for the folks who joined us, it's a performance evening. It's a chance for our students to sing for and to each other, to read poetry to and for each other, to just be together. And it's been online for a couple of years, and now it's in person. So I'm going to go from here to there after I'm done. And so thank you for that. Okay, last but certainly not least, we have a current / alumni parent with us tonight. So Priya, to you.
Thanks so much for having me on the panel. I'm certainly very excited to share share my experiences as a current parent and as a parent of a graduate. So I'm a family doctor practicing in Brampton for the last 28 years. So I've got a busy practice, a super busy mom who was looking for a great place to have my kids have their home away from home. I have loved each and every moment of the school, even before my kids started here. And we are in our 7th year. My younger son started in grade 6. So we got the junior school experience, middle school experience, and high school. And my older son is in first year medical school at Queen's at the moment. So I'm not sure, but maybe because I'm such a fan of the school, I was asked to sit on the board of directors 2 years ago, and that is a privilege and an honor to serve and give back to the school who's given my children so much. So I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. That you guys are great at introducing yourselves. That was ideal. And boy, it's nice to see a child following their parents' footsteps. There's a bit of a heartwarming moment to that. So great. Thank you for sharing that part of your family journey. The way this panel is going to run, I'm going to throw some questions out. They're actually complementary questions to some of the questions you could see from some other of the amazing independent schools that you can research. We love that type of research. We think our message is wonderful and strong and the right fit for lots of people, but we want to get that right fit that's so important to you and to us. And so I'm going to start with Carly as my first victim. My first person to answer a question. So this question is, Carly, what did you appreciate most about the school during your time here? And how has your perspective on that changed now that you've had some distance from the school?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things about CDS is just how much the staff cares. It's something that I really, really appreciated while I was there. And the fact that all my teachers were able to cater to my learning style. I'm a fairly visual learner and a kinesthetic learner, so I like to touch things and get around and move around. And I don't know a class where we didn't have accommodations of that, which is something I just don't get as much of in university. So it's a lot more of a challenge. So yeah, I think just how much all the staff cares and really wants to see all of the students succeed was something that really stood out to me about CDS through all my years there.
Great, thank you, Carly. Same question over to you, Jose.
Sure. Yeah. So I think what I'll talk about is that idea. I remember you kind of brought it up, this like slogan of education with balance. And I think sort of with balance, there needs to sort of be like options in order for folks to balance. And I think that was sort of one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about my time at CDS, because it sort of gives students the ability to engage with lots of different, not just sort of in an academic sense, but you have like tons of different like sort of extracurriculars that you can involve yourself in. So I know I was fortunate enough to kind of get involved in both like academic clubs as well as athletic as well as artistic clubs. And I think being able to have that kind of breadth really served me well, I think, sort of in sort of the post-secondary experience, because even something like being able to sort of participate in the plays and develop that public speaking aspect, that's been something that's sort of been hugely helpful and definitely in the business side of my education. And I think you mentioned as well, sort of a lot of the advanced placement courses. That was something that I definitely took advantage of while I was at CDS. And so I could really feel that difference, especially in first year university, where some of my peers were kind of learning things for the first time. And I was like, oh, well, I remember when Miss Edwards taught us this, or I remember when we covered sort of these concepts. And so being able to kind of have that cushion during that transitional period made that transition, I think, a lot more smooth than not having it. And so I was really, really appreciative then, and I'm still definitely really appreciative of it now.
Was there an activity that you look back and you think, I'm even surprised now that I did that? It was maybe off brand for you. Was there one that you did was like, oh yeah, I actually did that?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely for me, that I'd probably chalk that up to maybe sort of like the grade representatives and student council involvement. Mostly because I think, and I think I forgot to mention this in my intro, I sort of came into CDS purely for the high school period. So for me, it was from 2013 to 2017. And so I think coming in, I was a bit more of like a shy person. So I never would have seen myself as kind of the individual to join like a student leadership group and kind of be the guy dressed up in like the costume or whatever, like chanting at crowds to come follow me and like let's go to like sort of like the football field and participate in all these sort of crazy events. So like looking back and looking at who I became in a good way, that was definitely something that surprised me, and it's something that I've tried to sort of carry with me now, because it was a lot of really good positive development for myself, and so I'm very grateful for it.
Great, thanks, Jose. Priya, sort of in that kind of similar question, it's a bit of a big picture one. What did you choose this? What helped you choose the school originally? In what way, and in which ways did this school, with things that you kind of expected come true, and maybe what was something you didn't even expect that happened?
Oh, well, we live a little bit rural, so the options for schooling that offered breadth and exposure and multiculturalism were really, really important to me. And the community that I live in can sometimes be a little bit narrow. So anywhere that we had to send our children to school was going to be far. So I really needed to make sure that the school that my children went to was sort of offered them a sort of a New York City type of experience, but in a really small, caring, and I want to say sheltered, because shelter is not the right word, but a caring, almost parental, familial type of setting. And after touring several schools, at first I'd heard a lot about the school. Several of my patients had children who went to the school. At some of the other private schools that my children had gone to, CDS was always, talked about. So when I came to the school, Mr. Huckville, you were the first person one of the first people that I met. And we had a lovely tour by, I think there was a little girl in grade 4 and someone in grade 6. And just the way those children spoke well, and they were so self-composed, and any questions that we had, they answered that confidence. They were super enthusiastic, and you could tell, when you tell children to do something, they either begrudgingly do it, but these were children who really were super proud of their school. So I think that really struck us, and it made my kids feel very welcome. And from an academic standpoint, I kind of feel a school, such as CDS really does promote learning in different styles, as Carly mentioned, right? So I have kids who are really cerebral, but, very artistic as well. And the fact that there were small classrooms. So I had one going into grade 6 and had one starting grade 9, just like Jose. So that sort of university prep, small lectures, being able to interact with the teachers was really important for my kids, because that's how they learned. And then I also remember saying to Mr. Huckvale, I want my children to go here. I'm super busy. I work in Emerge. My husband travels a lot. In order for my children to come to the school, you have to make busing work. And that, you made a commitment. It was far out of, I think at that time you had kids in the school at some point, but not for a long time. And I said, I want my children to be here. And the only way they're going to be able to come here is if you make busing work. And I think that that is something that each and every teacher, each and every administrative person that I've had the opportunity to deal with has always sort of gone above and beyond to make sure that the school works for their families and that their families are happy to bring their children there. So for me, the school has far exceeded my expectations. We were looking at a school that had education with balance, because there's some schools that are very education focused, or some that, and my children, I wanted them to be exposed to sports, and I wanted them to do arts. And my children are very left brain, right brain. So the fact that even though you made busing possible for me, I drove my children to and from school pretty much every day of the week, either for 7:30 a.m. choir, debate club, play practice, you name it. My kids were in everything. And so they were exposed to so many different activities that they wouldn't have, and it's truly shaped who they are. I really do believe as both Carly and Jose have discussed, like the experiences that my kids have had, they may not have been exposed to previously at another school. They were encouraged to thrive. It was a smaller school, so teachers knew who they were. Teachers called me to say, listen, Arjun is such a great speaker. I need for him to be on the debate team. You know, I had Miss Wyndham West call me to say he needs to be on this team. He's great at that. And I don't know that you get that at other schools, and teachers just really encouraging, getting to know them. And so it really stretched their thinking, made them feel sort of, you know, sometimes try things that were uncomfortable, but really made them grow. And, you know, Kabir's in med school, but his passion is singing. Like that is his love. And he is still doing that at Queen's, and he's working with a recording artist, and everyone sort of says, you know, like, are you sure you really want to do medicine? And he loves that. So he was able to sort of thrive in that environment, but also be exposed to art and culture and travel and science and technology. So it's far exceeded my expectations. There's nothing that it didn't, there's no box it didn't check off, and there's so many more that it did.
Right. I think you just convinced a lot of parents when you just talked about medicine as a backup. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, the twist on the typical discussion. Thank you for that. You kind of did two questions. You did why you chose us and what it was like, and even how it helped shape your children. I'm gonna switch back to the alumni, and I'll throw it to Jose first this time. And I have this question to pose, but it's a to me a little tricky one. I'm really interested because you have people in different environments, and you now in post-secondary, both of you, so you're not with students who went to different students. So we're asking, for the best of your knowledge, what differentiates CDS from other schools? And I think it's your experience now out in the real world that actually might give you purchase to answer this. So Jose, you can go first.
Yeah, and I think probably my answer to this is going to echo a bit of sort of the answer that was just given by Dr. Sapal, which is that I think with sort of other schools, there can sometimes be a bit of a focus on one particular dimension of, let's say, like the experience of schooling as a whole, whether that be sort of the academics or the athletics or sort of the arts. You might have a school that's like, oh, well, yeah, this is a really good art school. So if you want your kids to sort of thrive in this environment, you send them here. Oh, they have a really strong sort of sports team, so you might want to sort of send your kids here. I think that what Country Day does, I think really, really well is they sort of take that adage of sort of being a master of none, and they sort of toss that out the window, because they've been able to sort of provide an experience in every single dimension. I think that's very, very strong, and can sort of stand on its own 2 feet. And so I think being able to provide that level of breadth, but still maintain a very impressive level of depth within sort of each of those pillars, that's definitely something that I think it sets it apart, I think, from sort of the rest of the education institutions that I have at least sort of met people who've gone to or had sort of personal experience of interacting with. And so I really, really value it for that. And I'm very happy that I personally have been able to kind of take a little piece of everything and really dip my toes. And so I can say personally that when I say that the quality of each of those pillars is quite high, it's because I was sort of involved with them, and I know that I have sort of really good experiences across the board, and I really do think that it is something that sort of sets Country Day as a individual, as a unique sort of individual in that space.
Thanks, Jose. Carla, I'm really curious for your answer.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna sound a bit like a copycat, but yeah, no, I would say, again, like the opportunities that CDS offers is just amazing. There's something for everyone. And as Jose said, like the quality, whether it's sciences or sports or arts that you're interested in, it's all there for you. So, and I mean, I've had the opportunity to travel with at least one from almost every aspect of those. I mean, I've traveled with the sports teams, and then I traveled to Peru, which was like an outdoor ed type trip that was really, it really gave me a different perspective on life, because we went into these communities that were really small and needed a lot of help. And then I've also traveled with the music department to Germany, which just So just the opportunities and the broad range of things that you have available to you. So if you're in the sciences, you're not at a disadvantage to being able to experience these amazing things versus the sports teams, which also get to travel. So I think that's one of the things that's most resonated with me, is that I've been able to experience these amazing life experiences that I'm going to take with me for ages, if not forever, that I just never would have experienced anywhere else. And speaking to people that went to other schools or my age, they are they just don't get the same experience at their schools. And it's something, yeah, that I will always appreciate about CDS, because I grew a lot as a person during those experiences.
I have to tell Jose and Carly, I'm so excited. We're planning the university trip for next year again. We've been on hiatus for the last couple of years, understandably, but we've been booking our visits to the 10 campuses that you can choose between the trips for that you guys know. And it's just so awesome to know that we'll see our alumni on those trips. For the viewers here today, we take kids to universities, and when we show up, yes, the university is hosting us, but our former students show up and meet the bus and jump on the tours and really kind of celebrate the fact that their schools arrived at their university campus. So we're excited to be throwing that out there again into the world. I'm going to stay with the students because this next question is going to force a different answer, because it's kind of a really unique one. It's a 3-word answer to the question of, if the school was represented as a single person, what would his personality be like? And I'm giving you 3 words. So both of you are at least partly business students, so you should have 3. You should handle this good. So back to Carly. 3-word personality.
I think this one's hard because there's so many words to describe CDS, but I went with enthusiastic, because I think it's just so loving of all types of people and excited to interact with those personalities. Adventurous, because of the amount of different opportunities that you get, and willing to explore those with you. If you're interested in one thing, all the teachers are there to help prompt you in that. And understanding, because I know if I was just struggling in one area, there was never a moment where a teacher would hesitate to reach out and say, hey, I know you're struggling in this area. What can I do to help you? And just really see me thrive throughout my experience. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no journey is just in one way. There's ups and downs, and thanks for sort of, showing that vulnerability and saying, yeah, there are moments when we have to look to somebody for counsel, for pat on the back, a kick in the butt, you name it. And I do think CDS delivers all of those. I've delivered all of those. Jose, your 3 words.
Yeah, I think I'll be probably pulling a couple synonyms of the words drop now, but I think the underlying message is also quite similar. But I think sort of what I've gone with is lively. I think that definitely sort of captures I remember sort of like being at school, there would almost always be something going on, something that students could attend to, or some kind of activity for people to get engaged with. And so that sort of like level of energy that's there for students to sort of interact with, I thought that was definitely something I wanted to kind of highlight. I think another word I kind of wanted to pop in there was accepting. I know you talked about, I think sort of in the introduction, that like it is a co-ed school, it is a secular school. So we're very much in sort of the business of making sure that all folks from all walks of life are able to kind of attend and sort of feel welcome and feel accepted. And that's definitely something that I think resonated with me. I do think like the fact that it is a co-ed school, sort of in contrast to some other schools that sort of decide to go single gendered, I think that's definitely a very big benefit, because it allows for young people sort of growing up to kind of develop that kind of nuance of interaction that they need to, and which I think is very, very important later on in life as well. And the last one, I think synonyms sort of understanding, but supportive as well, in the sense that, I mean, guidance, I think, is always there. And not just from sort of the amazing guidance counselors that sort of the school has, and that I had a couple of friends have definitely sort of made use of over the years. But I think even through sort of just teachers in the classroom, as well as sort of coaches sort of on the field and off, There's never been a moment where I didn't feel like I could sort of turn to the nearest kind of sort of administrative faculty and sort of open up and maybe talk about some issues or that I felt like my concerns wouldn't be heard. And that's something that I think is definitely a rarity. I think it's unfortunately not, I don't think, common at all educational institutions. So I'm very happy and very grateful that CDS is one of those places where you can find that in spades.
Great. Thanks, Jose. Priya, they want the questions to be posed to you as well, and so I'm interested from a parental perspective, the 3 personality words that you would share.
I found this really hard because it is, I mean, there's so many amazing qualities. And if I were to think of CDS as a personality, one, again, inclusive, welcoming, like almost like a big hug from a grandparent, or, because it is such a, as kids who, my kids were not, they're not lifers. So they came in at sort of, grade 9 is maybe an okay transition year because there's lots of new kids, but coming in as a child who's in grade 6 with a lot of anxiety and concern. So everyone was incredibly welcoming. Everyone from the kids to the teachers to administrators, and sort of trying to ensure that my younger one was sort of enveloped in this family and made a part of everything, kind of dragged along to everything, encouraged. So I do think, and their learning styles were maybe a little bit different. But so just sort of wanting to include everybody and making sure that everybody, no one was sort of left behind. So I think that certainly, that was certainly one of the words that I had. And I'm going to use the word schizophrenic in a good way, in the sense that when you sort of think as, you've got 2 sides of the brain and the brain's going all over the place, there's just so much that the school offers. So I feel like if there are children who say, there's nothing for me to do at this school, I'm really not sure, like whether it's arts or science or debating or robotics or STEAM or pottery making or arts and crafts or cooking or the business club. I mean, skiing, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, snowboarding team, you name it. I think it would be so hard to find, to not be able to find something that your child enjoys, but almost to the point where there's too much, where the kids would come home and say, I want to do this, but I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I really like this, and I really love that. So I say it in a good way, because there's just so much that the kids are exposed to, because sometimes kids don't know what they don't know. So to be able to have those opportunities where maybe, it's not a full investment, but they get a couple of months of trying something new, I think is good. So I use it in a way that's not a negative connotation, but more of a, there's just so much for them to experience. And again, just, I want to say outgoing and caring. And teachers, I think because the class sizes are so small, and because there's so few families at the school, it's really a close-knit family that Carly, to your point, teachers knew if there was something going on in the extended family, and how a child may sort of be functioning or not functioning, or sort of knowing what's going on with an extended family member. Like when my father was unwell and in the hospital, all I had to do was call Miss Bland and say, this is where things are with my dad. And I had her reaching out to me. I had teachers reaching out to me. They understood that my kids may not be at school, and it was okay. So I think just not having to explain yourself, because there is a truly vested interest in these teachers and administrators who are super outgoing and want to get to know you. So I think that just makes it so much easier. So those were 3 words that I thought of.
Thank you for sharing all of those 9 words and the extra detail that went along with it necessarily, because there's the words were just sort of the entree to some really great insights. And I get it. Like you guys are in the I'll be honest, I pick people who I feel really have their heart in this place, even though, in 2 cases they're now, past the school, and Priya, you're still here as a parent. But no place is perfect. And this next question is a good one. And I want you guys to think about this. I know you have, about something that you might tweak or change. So I'm going to start with Jose for this one. What's one thing that you think the school could change for the better if you had to choose something? So I'm putting your feet to the fire here.
I know it's a tough question because it's like you look back and you have all these positive memories and you're, oh, come on, what am I going to change? But I think, and this could be maybe less a criticism of the school itself and maybe more, I think, of sort of like the Ontario curriculum as a whole. But I think looking back, having some sort of classes or a unit in a class, or like something that's kind of geared, and this is sort of coming from the business talk now, but like something geared towards personal finance, that's definitely something that I look at that and I'm like, these are really, really valuable kind of life skills, and being able to kind of have some level of exposure to that earlier on, I think definitely would be a huge help. But I say that, one, knowing that it's been a few years since I've even sort of been in the system, so I don't know if there's sort of been some introduction of those topics as of yet. But 2, knowing that there are some efforts, I think right now, like I know sort of I was asked to speak with Miss Street's grade 6 class, I think it was last year, and to sort of talk to them already about kind of the basics of personal finance. So seeing stuff like that already taking place kind of gives me sort of the hope that these kinds of efforts are already underway. And it's definitely something that I'd like to see sort of not only adopted by sort of CDS, but just kind of across the board, across the secondary education system.
Oh, excellent answer. I wonder if Carly was here. Were you here, Carly, when Mr. Liggett, the head of school, he ran there was an after school club 1 year after you left, where he ran a financial, he's an MBA, so he did a financial fundamentals 1 day a week club for a bit, which was I think really kind of trying to hit that mark. So good suggestion, Jose. Carly, what would be something you'd tweak about the school?
Well, that was also a really difficult question for me. I think it came back to what I also appreciate most, because it was kind of a double-edged sword. The teachers that care so much, and they made me thrive during high school. I found sometimes in terms of shifting, okay, the best way to put it was Miss B once said to me, which is the drama/English, well, she taught me English. I don't know if she still teaches English, but grade 11 and 12 drama teacher. She said, we are trying to teach you in an evolving system, but then preparing you for a system that's not evolving in terms of university is very like rigid and hard. And so CDS I found to be very forgiving, and I loved it because it taught me about what learning styles work for me and how I need to study and how I can be discipline myself. But it was also very forgiving. And I know that coming into university, it was not that way. Like if you missed a deadline because you felt sick, it was like, well, sucks to be you, man. So I would say, I would want that maybe something to change, but at the same time, I don't want it to change. So it was a difficult question for me because it's something I most appreciate about CDS because it helped me thrive. But at the same time, it was a really difficult change to university.
Well, I'm glad you said that. It's one of the things that we grapple with as a faculty and a leadership team here. What is that right posture to teach in an amazing and evolving and really relationship building manner here, or put some more multiple choice tests in front of you and dock you 1% every 10 minutes for a late assignment with no quarter. So we're evolving on that too, and trying to be kind of walk that tightrope. But thank you for sharing that. That's really good advice. Priya, we've been talking from your perspective. You have a current student and a former student. What do you hear them say about the school? What are the things that, because it's an interesting relationship what kids will tell their parents, and so it's quite telling sometimes what they will say to you about the school. For Arjun when he's currently here, and for Kabir that he's left. What are some of the things they've said to you about the school?
So I think Jose, to your point, when Kabir started at university, and, you know, I think that they were very familiar with high school teaching. They were very familiar with sort of that interactive professor student, come talk to me after class, let's explore a concept, and where he was, you know, incredibly well exposed. He did not find that transition to university challenging at all. And I think that was the style in which CDS teaches their high school students. So, I mean, those were positive things because, you know, transitioning to university is very challenging. You know, it's you're not being spoon fed. And that's the other thing that Kabir said too, right? Is that his friends who went to other high schools, there was still a lot of read this chapter, do this, this is due, versus there was, you know, there was a lot of onus on the children to sort of be very self-directed. So I think for him, he did not find that transition to university challenging at all because he was so well prepared. And sort of also, you know, trying different things, coming out of your comfort zone, where he sort of was able to take those skills and join an a cappella singing group, you know, at Queen's and still be the academic rep. And, you know, so that sort of balance, I think, was great. Arjun, as he, I think, would probably say he was never a debater. He's more like computer science and robotics and all that sort of stuff, but he's a talker. And I kept saying, you need to be a lawyer, and to have his teachers, you know, sort of recognize that and say, like, I want him on my club. And he said, you know, it really gave me the opportunity to think on my feet, develop an argument. I can go anywhere and I can talk to anybody about anything. I can defend myself anywhere. And Carly, to your point, where, you know, I agree, the teachers, like, if they're, you know, if Arjun couldn't complete an assignment, or he felt like he had too many assignments that he had to, you know, to sort of do, and they were due at the same time, the teachers are super understanding. But what I loved is that it wasn't me sort of saying, you know, Mr. Edwards, Arjun, you know, is not going to write his test today, he's not feeling well, or he has too many things to do. Arjun had to go and he had to have a conversation with his teachers to say, this is, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I have, you know, because I'm in several different grades at the moment, you know, I'm doing grade 12 this, grade 11 this, and so there are conflicts. They actually had to go and sort of stand up to the teacher to say, this is what I need, this is why I need it, and work to that. So I think Arjun would probably say that ability to communicate, get your point across, maybe it's a differing opinion or a differing point, and sort of being an adult. I think he would probably say that that's one of the things that he's come away with. So
that ability to self-advocate is so important. Yeah. And here it's a place where the people you're having that interaction with are trusted adults in your life, and that's great practice. Because I think, as Jose and Carly would say, when you do that at university, it's not maybe someone who knows you or knows of you or cares as much, but you have practice in going up and saying, here's my situation, and it gives you a fighting chance. That's for sure. There's the question for my alum now has the word surprising in it. So I'd love it if it was something. It can be something kind of really quirky, but I don't know. You guys have had these questions, you've thought about it, but the question is, what would families find most surprising about the school? And so that word surprising, I hope that's been kind of, you know, interesting for you to think about what would be surprising. Carly, you go first on what a family might find as surprising. Carly? Uh-oh. She may have, I think her screen, oh, there we go. No one's, Priya, you and I are the only ones within sort of your driving distance of each other.
Right.
BC, Jose in France, and I'm glad we've had the coverage we've had so far. So Jose, you go with this one. Let's see if Carly gets the service back.
Back in later, sure. Yeah, I think I'll lean on, and you might personally remember this, Mr. Huckville. I think there was a couple scenarios, I think, where we were doing assemblies, and I think part of sort of like my role in the student council sometimes would be to kind of come up during some of these assemblies and either tell some stories or I remember we had a segment called like sort of like Jose Tries New Things, where there's this like weird list of foods that, like, for whatever reason throughout my childhood I'd never had them before, and I would be sort of eating them in front of the entire school. And I think a couple times you might be sort of have been giving some tours, and so to have some of these prospective parents come in and see sort of one of the students sort of proudly kind of come up on stage and maybe eat like dried salted cod or like straight mustard, or sometimes something nice like blueberries and things like that, just sort of in front of the whole school for their enjoyment. I think something like that can definitely come across as really surprising. But I remember, I think we also had a conversation after the fact, and I think you told me that the family was so impressed that like someone like myself was willing to sort of put myself in such a vulnerable position in front of everyone. And I think it was sort of like a testament to how comfortable I was sort of in that environment and with everyone there, and to know that I wasn't really going to sort of personally be judged on any of this. And so I definitely think something like that would definitely come across as a surprise, but definitely a pleasant one.
The audience will have seen me smiling through all that, because those are such fond memories when you were eating those things you hadn't tried.
Yeah.
And the school was and I think that's kind of the summary of that there's times when the school can just let its hair down and be
Yeah.
and be relaxed with each other. Yes, we're a university prep school, and yes, there's expectations within our community, from without our community, within our community, but there's some moments you really can just sort of relax into it. On the other hand, in those assemblies, we're big time clappers, aren't we, guys? Carly, as soon as any exchange to the podium, anything that someone was finished speaking, they get applause. We're very polite that way as a school. Yeah. That's something that I find surprising, that we keep that up. We're committed to that. Carly, what would you say a family might find it surprising?
Yeah, one of the things that I found, or that families that I talked to would find most surprising, is how much CDS pushed me out of my comfort zone. I mean, I'm a fairly outgoing person as it is. I was involved in all the plays and what have you, and never had problems public speaking. But for me, in the music department, knew how scared I was to sing on my own, because I always loved being part of the choir, because then if you mess up, you're surrounded by other people. And so one of the times when I was in the high school, I was asked to sing "O Canada." And I remember sitting next to a parent at I think it was a sports assembly, and like shaking. And they leaned over to me and they're like, "It's fine, you're gonna be great." So the community was amazing. And I got up and I sang, and I told that to a prospective family that I was touring afterwards, saying how I was shaking on stage. I almost forgot the lyrics to "O Canada," and we sing it every week. And they were really pleased with that, because there's not a lot of schools that recognize individual areas for improvement, because maybe they're so big, or it's just not as personal. And so it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And that's something that, everyone I've talked to has really appreciated and found really surprising about the school. So, yeah.
And I can report out from the audience that you did a great job.
Thanks.
And it was awesome. And so proud of you for putting yourself out there and trying, and boy, it pays off. You're actually now an ambassador for UBC, right? You're now doing what you did for CDS as a student ambassador at your university, and only with a couple of years under your belt. Have you given your first tour yet?
I haven't. My training is from May 9th to 13th. So if anyone's in BC after that, feel free to come on a tour.
Well, you kind of did some informal ones, because this year when UBC wasn't doing tours, Carly was at the other end of the line for one of our current students who was actually new to the school, who his family came out to UBC, and Carly, you showed them around like gangbusters. If the reports back from them are true, they saw from stem to stern, I think, better than what would have been the official tour. So in front of these guests, thank you for just jumping in and saying, of course, Mr. Huckville, I'll show that CDS student around at my school. So great on you. Priya, this is the last parent question, and it's a value-based question. So I'm glad it's last, because it's kind of in a way kind of a capstone. But how would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community? You met a lot of families along your pathway.
So I think from a value, the values, when we look, when we were looking to find a place for the kids to go to school, it was really important for the school to also echo our values as a family. So where hard work was important, not so much attaining a final mark, but the effort to get there. And I think that that's something that CDS certainly encourages, good work and trying hard, and sort of improving as time goes on. For our family as well, a sense of being a part of the community, and giving back to that community. And certainly CDS, it's in King City, so it is very involved with a lot of activities in the city. Arjun had an opportunity to record some King City history for the museum in King City, also sort of giving back to the communities in King City, taking part in their street fairs and so on. So I think the school is very involved with their community, just like we are at home in our community where we live in Brampton, and allowing people to sort of flourish in what they're interested in. And so again, the kids were encouraged to try new things, experience new things, and not being judgmental. I think that, again, speaking to the schools, how inclusive the school is and how current the school is, from, when we talk about gender and we talk about inclusivity and we talk about diversity. I think those things are super important. And those are things that we as immigrants, although second generation or third generation, it's incredibly important to us to feel that way and to sort of understand new families that are coming in. So I think it's great at CDS where we do have international students that are coming in. Sometimes this is their first exposure, to sort of be very welcoming and show them around and learn from their experiences. So I do think when we were looking for a school, it needed to be an extension of our values and beliefs, and CDS truly is a family. And I think it speaks, it's a small school, but again, a big school feeling, but everybody is aware, everybody's concerned, everybody's approachable. I could pick up the phone and call a teacher. I could pick up the phone and have someone on the other end. I could send out an email, and at 6 a.m. someone would reply to me. So I think that sort of back and forward communication, collaboration, I could just go on and on, but I really do think that for us, it was a great fit when we looked at other schools and what their philosophies were. CDS really fit with ours, and it was really important for us to not have our children just focused either on school or sports or arts. They needed to be well-rounded all-rounders. And I think, Jose, you said something like, there's the jack of all trades, master of none. CDS really has mastered so many aspects of it, and that's evident and the success of my children. And I can't, and I'm going to put in a plug to you, Mr. Huckvale. Kabir in grade 9 heard about this program, this direct entry into med school from high school. And I don't know, he had a conversation with you, and that he became focused on that, and you were so instrumental. And we've had kids at CDS sort of get through to certain stages, and when he was writing his letters, you encouraged him to be himself and said, like, Kabir, write about the fact that you do X, Y, and Z. And I thought, oh, Kabir, you don't want to write that you do this. And he's like, Mr. Huckvale thinks that this is great. I should just, and just sort of really seeing them as adults and encouraging them, and just taking that special interest in the fact that Kabir made it all the way through. And he's gotten into this incredibly prestigious program. 10 kids a year get into this program. Who knew? And it was such a proud moment for us as a family. And I think the school was incredibly proud too. And I know when my kids, their previous schools found out, they were incredibly proud. So I think that the school has so many great tools to help our children succeed. And when I look at what Jose's doing, and when I look at what Carly's doing, fantastic. Like you're in Paris, you're in France, you're going to Goldman Sachs. I mean, like it really is a parent. That's what you want for your children. You want to give them the tools so that they can go out and succeed. And I think CDS does that beautifully. So.
Thank you for reminding me of those wonderful moments with Kabir. I enjoyed all those sessions we had together, and I enjoyed his success. But I'll tell you what, I will say one of the things I love about CDS is I get to revel and enjoy the success of the student who their best work, their best efforts has them going to a school that's nearby and has a general program that's perfect for them. I feel like we're not that school that says, oh, please go out and be this successful so that we can put it on the list. It's more about like the people. Like when Kabir shared that he'd got that opportunity, I'm not ashamed to say a tear came to my eye because of this human being in front of me who was reaching his personal goal. And I had the same feeling to share with a student who was admitted to a school that for them was the perfect fit. It might not be a mantelpiece admission, but for them it was like the be all end all. And I think that same tear came to my eye. So that was thank you for that. Those are great moments. The last thing I'm going to ask is to the students, and for just a little piece of advice. Their students are entering the school. Students who will watch this session and be impressed and apply and get admitted and join us. What's a little tidbit of advice that each of you, Carly and Jose, would give to that student? Carly, I'm going to let you go first. What's your bit of advice?
Yeah, I would say get involved with the community. There is something for you at the school. Priya mentioned like there's so many different clubs and activities that you can do. And she also mentioned the busing, and what's great about that is that it leaves at 4:30. So it gives you, if you're a busing kid, you have to participate in some extracurricular activity. So that's where I got kind of pushed into doing something like that, which I loved. Yeah, I have friends that didn't do that and they waited until their last year of high school, and it was their biggest regret from CDS. And if someone encourages you to try something that you just never thought you would, do it anyway. If you don't like it, you can always switch. I was encouraged to do softball by a teacher, and I was like, softball, and it's like something I absolutely love, and I want to do like a intramural league here. So yeah, just take advantage of the opportunities that CDS gives you, extracurricular and academic, and you're going to find something that you absolutely love and are passionate about.
Okay, Jose, what's your bit of advice?
Yeah, the thing is, I was going to say the exact same thing. So maybe I'll find a way to say it and just rephrase it differently. But I guess maybe the way I'd pitch it is.
What about, Jose, I'm gonna suggest, what about academically? Do you think that same idea of trying things out of your comfort zone academically is something that would be good advice for a student who comes to this school?
Yeah, I think the way I was going to sort of phrase it is like, don't be afraid to fail. I remember looking back, I think at high school, and I remember, I was like so stressed about it. I think it's just like the academics there as well. And once you're at university, you look back and you're like, why did this quiz in grade 10 cause me this stress that it did? And it's like in the big picture, like I really do look back and I'm like, man, like I wish academically as well I had that sort of same energy in terms of trying a bunch of different things with the clubs to do that academically as well. I mean, in my case, like some of that did work out for me because the entire reason I'm in the computer science program now is because sort of just on a hunch or on a whim, I was like, well, I've never been interested kind of in computers sort of before to that point, at least not to the extent that I was like, I want to study in it. But after I took that computer science class at CDS for 2 years, and I'll definitely sort of give a huge props to Mr. Morlack for that. Like my entire sort of just trajectory of where I wanted sort of the rest of my life to go changed. And so I don't know that I would have done that if I sort of just stuck with what I was comfortable with at the time. So I would apply that sort of same mentality, that same sort of philosophy to academics as well. And you know, it's all right if you don't feel like you're getting it at first. I think, you know, really take advantage of that support system that CDS puts in place for you. And I think, you know, if there's ever a time to fail, this is the place. And you know, you get to learn some really valuable lessons from it. And you never know, like you might find something even within that academic space that really sort of piques your interest and might kind of sort of influence what you want to do after the fact.
And I'll just add, can I add on to
Yeah,
Jose's thing?
absolutely.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and don't worry about relevancy. Like I am in business, but I took chemistry and physics all throughout high school. And although I don't use it anymore, I think in physics every day in terms of like, okay, if I'm walking here, what's the shortest displacement? And like use physics words that I just wouldn't use otherwise. And it's just something that I enjoyed. So yeah, get involved, use courses that even if they're not relevant, take them anyway if you enjoy them. So yeah.
Well, one thing I learned tonight was don't try new people for panels. Pick these three because they're awesome. You guys did a great job. And for those of you watching, if you stuck with us to the about 54 or 5 minute mark, that's great. And you are clearly interested in CDS. And I hope this helped you get a little bit of an additional insight into who we are here at the school. We, of course, invite you to learn more by coming and visiting us and looking into what the school can offer. We're so excited to have guests. And so I'm going to thank the panel. Just so really briefly, thank you for joining me tonight. And I'm looking forward to catching up with each of you outside of this Zoom format. And be so well. And again, thanks for watching this as a family considering Country Day School.